before I tell you what date this was, you can either write it down or think mentally. When did the iPhone 3GS, the one that had a 3 megapixel camera that was twice as fast as any phone known to mankind, when did it come out? 2009. In June 2009. Now, picture, if you will, people sitting around tables like this, and we were researchers, and I was sitting here with my business partner Henry and a couple other folks, and we had our really cool iPhone 3GSs out, and we're asking ourselves the question, how can we use this within the realm of research? What would it look like? How could I have someone that has this phone, could they actually communicate back? At that time, it was singularly focused, get a bunch of downloads, and hopefully someone's going to click on an ad. No one thought about reversing that process to bring data back in. And you finally, with this phone, you can actually use GPS to not only track, but to bring data back in. Okay? So photos became really, really smart. So we're sitting around with our phones, and we're Googling, we're trying to find some research agency that was creating this, and there was none to be found. So when we started out, we really had a very simple challenge. We, much like the people in this room back in the day in 2009, were trying to figure out how can we get real-time information, better visibility, without sending people all over the United States and the world to go capture data. So we knew this phone would take care of us. Right? So that's kind of our history lesson. Now let's look a little bit forward from that. As we were looking at this, there really was the concept of crowdsourcing, right? People that actually had a phone, used smart technology. But could we use this to capture data along this very, very simple path to purchase influence? In most cases, around 2010 or so, when we launched this category, the rage was the first moment of truth, right? Procter came out with that. What's happening in the store? Then the second moment of truth, we started doing more concept testing, engaging people in their homes. Then Amazon waved their hand and said, hey, don't forget about us. We've got the zero moment of truth. How are people engaging prior to going to the store, and what are they doing with goods or services inside of their home? And again, all this is history, right? You've seen countless examples today already looking down this path. So for us, it was really understanding that engagement. So here was the key point. We had a new challenge in front of us. And the new challenge we're facing today, and we're kind of just now getting into this, is how do you really engage that shopper, that consumer, at that point of influence over time? Because in so many examples, it's go attack someone, pull in a piece of data, get a survey for a single point, or if you don't want to do that, then I'm going to go invest in an online community, get it stacked up, and I'm going to run the community over a period of time for a year or so, capture data. What we started to find out today is that while it was exciting and great to grab people and to engage at those points of influence, we're starting to see the step change for us is how do you capture them at those step points, that 0, 1st, and 2nd moment of truth? Or how do you hold on to them over time? Especially the ones that really resonate to you. Resonate to me. All right, this is a great note. I mean, it's a technical thing here. We're going to work through this. Man, I was yelling and shouting, and you guys could hear me, and I didn't have the mic on, and now I've got the mic on, and I have to speak slower and lighter now. All right, so we're really capturing things over time, right? So here's how we're looking at things now. Practically speaking, we all know that we could catch someone at breakfast. We could catch them one at lunch. We could follow them throughout their day. But in most cases, what we found is that we were finding them at lunch or catching them at breakfast or catching them at a certain point, but we weren't necessarily weaving things together. So because of that, we started asking ourselves the core question is how do we capture that? How do we use mobile technology that's going to allow us to track people, kind of that mobile diary or that aspect of things? And so it's a very simple aspect for us. We coined it the private crowd. And we coined it this way so you can differentiate between a legitimate community, which makes complete sense, right? There are reasons to have a community. But the question for all the researchers and all the brands in the room is that when you're conducting research and you've talked to 400 or 500 people and you find those 50 champions or those 100 naysayers, how can you hold on to them for a period of time to create a private crowd so that you can engage them where it makes sense for 30, 60, 90 days and let them go and not spend a false small fortune getting it started and have a tremendous amount of time to start things up? So we're going to talk about a couple of those examples and how that's playing out in our world today. The first piece is
For many of the folks in the room, it really is starting pretty broad, but for private communities, we've seen this happen not only with consumers and shoppers, we've also seen that happen with employees. You've got contractors out in the field, you've got service operators, you've got people that are engaging with your customers on the phone. How do you create that private crowd of folks? And we really look at it as a funnel. And so we're going to give you 3 or 4 examples of how we started out with 500 to 1,000 people engaging on initial responses, how the researchers in the room, the brands in the room said, gosh, of that 400 or 500, these 100 are really, really interesting. I love the way they think and what they're doing. Let's follow them over time. Let's bring it in a little bit tighter, and I might want to keep engaging them for another 30, 60 days. So let's talk about some examples. First of all, from a technology standpoint, the good news is it allows you to use the same technology that you're doing for your one-offs today, right? So as you relate to push notifications, as you look at geofencing, and with iBeacons, the same thing plays out, right? So it's not just necessarily a point in time, it's taking that private crowd over time, still engaging technology. So for us, let's talk about some specific projects and kind of case studies for us. I've been on the stage a few times, and we talked about very specific private projects over the last couple of 3 years that at least get people thinking, gosh, what would it look like for that crowd over time? So the first example, we've done work with women with diapers and their babies, right? What does it take to look at someone 30, 60 days, not have them send in their diapers, but actually engage them with their phone? Now, we all know when you're taking photos with kids, 5, 6 years ago, that was rough, right? But now with pictures and social media, it's not obtrusive at all for a mom to engage their kids and kind of take pictures with diapers and things like that. We did the exact same work on this little thing called toilet tissue. As your researchers, think about how do you take pictures or how do you do research? That's awkward, right? But if you're researchers, you realize sometimes you have to stand in the moment and engage. With mobile methodology, you don't have to do that. What about women with feminine protection? How does that play out? How do you conduct that research? What we found over time is that we started out with very, very broad groups, and we're engaging on very private things. And researchers and engineers and brain groups are looking at that data that's coming in, and as it comes in, they're saying, gosh, I want to hang on and tag those people for a period of time because it's really difficult to find them, but I wanted to hold on to them. Even to the point where we finish up, they bring some of those people in for a focus group, and they use the front-end methodology as a way to screen and recruit. So it's a total system left to right. Think of other examples. Understanding habits. For those of you that have young kids, we all know that all of our kids brush their teeth twice a day for 30 to 45 seconds while they say their ABCs, right? Because that's what we all do. Not even close, right? So as we looked at habits, you can imagine mom's in the bathroom with a child and say, hey, let's take a picture of the toothpaste, of what it looked like, and a little video of them singing their ABCs. And surprise, surprise, over a 30, 45-day period, it was really less than 1 time per day. Because kids get crabby at night, sometimes you just put them in bed and brushing their teeth is the last thing that you do. And no one finished any of the ABCs. It was more like 15 to 20 seconds. But that diary study gave us truth, but more importantly, it wasn't a single point in time. Because you all know as researchers, to get 4 or 5 data points is not going to help you. You need to understand things over time. You've got to have that diary study approach to make that happen. So let's look at other lifestyle examples. Just capturing life. Great example with a quick serve restaurant. We're talking to 500 millennials and trying to understand what they think about not only the product engagement, but actually the service element of things. They started bringing them in really tight and engaged them for a couple of executions. The brand person came in and said, listen, let's really look at these 2 subsets. And I really want to follow them over the next 30 days and engage some more, all the way to the point where they brought them in to do girlfriend groups, not focus groups, girlfriend groups. They engaged, and now they continue to track them today. All this with the use of mobile technology. And again, you can look at this and say, Rick, yeah, it seems pretty simple. I get that. But what I'm going to lay out to you, especially for the folks that stood up earlier, from a methodology standpoint, it's not that simple. You can't simply throw an app and throw a phone and say, take some pictures, because then you'd have someone like me leading them down the path, and we all know that's a bad thing. So the methodology is really important. The nice part about the technology related to this today is that you can engage and back away, and the startup costs are minimal, and the time is minimal. You can also engage and walk away and come back again, because it's not like you're running an average community day in and day out. So really important aspect of the methodology for you to use. The other aspect of this, which is really important, it's all about changing the way you collect business information and insight. So this is just an example of where we are today, right? You start out on the left-hand side, we're engaging. Now we're looking at a private crowd and we're understanding of things over time. And what you're going to find is as you're playing with this, more and more new uses, you're going to find other ways of avenues to use mobile technology. Now, as I end this talk before we get to Q&A, a couple of key things, especially for the researchers in the room. Remember, technology is a part of how we supplement current methodologies. There are multiple CPG companies and other manufacturers that are here that have launched billion-dollar brands with focus groups. You just have. So we're naive to think that we're not going to use current methodology in today's world. That being said, for the folks that are running those focus groups and you launched the billion-dollar brands 15 years ago, you're naive to think that mobile technology is not going to be a part of what you're doing today. So I challenge you with that. So if you're here for the first time and you're just trying to understand what mobile looks like and how it plays out, you need to engage this. If you're playing around with it, stop playing. You need to get more serious with it and really look at engaging your consumer and your shopper over time. That's the presentation for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I totally will underscore now is the time to get on top of this technology, but I'd ask you, what's next?
You know, what's next for us, we've heard the buzzwords of the Internet of Things, and I think oftentimes and I know this from if Mark Michelson's here from the Mobile Marketing Research Association, we're struggling with the concept of mobile versus the Internet of Things. And I think it's a fair question for us all to ask. Now, are we all going to be talking to our refrigerators? I don't know. Are we all going to be talking to things inside of the home? Are we really going to be engaging in our cars? And so what we've begun to ask ourselves from a question standpoint is whether it's a watch, something happening in my car, it's all about the mobility and the location specifics associated with gathering research. Because the consumer is going to use the technology in front of them, we have to be wise enough to develop methodologies so that we can engage people where they are. And I think that's the next part of this. And so we're dabbling in those areas today.